Okay, I'm constantly snipping and clipping here because there's a lot of raw edge and pieces I leave hanging. So, as you work your way around, you just clean it up as you go. By the time you're finished with the cloth, most of the loose things have come off. I have a lot of big blocks here, and I started doing this tic-tac-toe tie down in the corners, which is kind of a framework of a 9-patch. I'm looking at those today, and I want to remind myself I really love them. So I need to go around and use them on all the connecting points, like between the fabric blocks. But when I laid it on the bed today, I realized that when you work and you're looking from far away, you can create these really large spaces, large empty blocks like this. And they're more important in the composition when you're looking from far away, but up close, you tend to have these large expanses of color. And you can't really see them in the context of the design. So a lot of times what I do is I come back in and add some interest to the piece, simply by adding another scrap of fabric maybe that's close in color. So what happens is you start to break up the surface. I mean, you can even arrange different ones. It's a great way to use little scraps. But you break up the surface of the color, but you don't destroy the design at all. In other words, you're almost adding a texture by varying the color slightly, but keeping it close. I mean, sometimes it's exactly the same color. I pulled this scrap out. I also like to showcase sometimes little special pieces of fabric that you find, just to honor them in some way. I mean, this happens to be a small piece of one of the first fabrics that I designed when I was in the textile industry. And it's woven to look embroidered, which is a common design method where you have extra threads on the loom and they float over more. They don't go over, under like the plain weave, but they float a little longer and they make a design. And I want to use this one in here because I've always liked it, and I just thought it might fit here. And I was also thinking maybe I can, instead of placing it this way, I might just place it in sympathy with that curve. That might be something interesting. But let me say also I just wanted to mention about these little pieces of cloth. A lot of times you hate to use something because it's the only one you have or anything. But I really think that cloth, I mean, if it could speak, it would like to be used in some way. There's no sense saving things forever. For what? But a lot of times, what I do, if I have only one piece of something, I might scan it in the computer so that I can save the image of it. I have that Threadcrumbs blog. I haven't been really paying attention to it, but I like to document the small, tiny pieces that I know I only have a little bit of, and once I use them, they're going to be gone. But also, one of the reasons that I started that was to be inspired by those little snips of cloth. Woven fabrics can give you great ideas for stitches. And I just did this morning because when I looked at this, I thought, these are really just like running stitches. But how they're composed is just by stacking them. So I thought to myself, well, maybe I could do something like that just as a stitch. And it's actually quite interesting. And all I'm really doing is a running stitch, one on top of the other, very close. I'm not using a hoop or worrying about them being exact. But it gives you the opportunity to use a very simple running stitch, but in some other way. You know, I don't really go for too many fancy stitches. I just like the running stitch and all the variations that it can offer. So I'm thinking this is potentially, I mean, since it's a running stitch, it's almost a cantha stitch, but it's very, very close together. You can definitely get patterns out of it. Because you're just kind of going along, it has a nice uneven quality to it. And you can just stack them. And it is a lot like quilting as well, so I'm thinking that I might be able to experiment a little bit with this as a quilting stitch, and at the same time it would be, I mean, you can even get a 9 patch out of this, I guess, if you alternate them. So I think what I'm trying to say here is I'm always inspired by woven patterns, and I've been storing them up, and I want to do a lot more work from those references that I've got online. But I mean, even that turned out to be kind of something interesting. So I don't know what we'll call this. A stacked running stitch? I don't know. We'll have to name that. It's also the same on both sides, which is something quite interesting as well. So I'm thinking perhaps I might be able to use this as a quilting stitch in this, in addition to it being something decorative. Maybe I like that better. And I still have this one.